I am 32 years old, and up until 6 months ago, I thought I had everything figured out. I had a solid career as an architect in Portland, a fiancée named Diane, who I had been with for 3 years, and a wedding planned down to the last detail. We were supposed to get married in 3 weeks. The venue was booked, the invitations were sent, and her dress was hanging in our closet. My younger brother Kyle, who is 28, had always been the family favorite, but I never held that against him. Then one Friday afternoon, I came home early from a work trip and saw his blue Honda Civic parked in my spot. Diane was supposed to be home alone. Before I tell you what I found behind that door, I want to hear from you. Where are you watching this from? Drop your city or country in the comments below. And if you have ever felt betrayed by someone you trusted, completely hit that like button, because you are not alone in this. Do not forget to subscribe, because what happened next changed everything I thought I knew about family and forgiveness. Let me take you back to how it all started. I need to paint you a picture of what my life looked like before everything fell apart. For the past 5 years, I had been working as an architect at a mid-sized firm in downtown Portland. I had just finished a major project, a 10-story office building with floor-to-ceiling windows that overlooked the Willamette River. It was the kind of work that made me proud to wake up every morning. I met Diane 3 years earlier at an art gallery opening. She was an elementary school art teacher with the warmest smile I had ever seen. She had this way of making everyone around her feel valued and heard. She loved cooking elaborate dinners on Sunday evenings and tending to the small garden on our apartment balcony, where she grew tomatoes and basil. We got engaged 8 months before that Friday. I proposed to her on a hiking trail near Multnomah Falls, and when she said yes, I genuinely believed I was the luckiest man alive. We spent months planning every detail of our wedding. We chose a venue overlooking the Columbia River Gorge, hired a photographer whose work Diane had admired for years, and selected a menu that included her grandmother's recipe for apple pie. Everything was perfect, or so I thought. Now let me tell you about my family. My father, Richard, spent 30 years working construction before retiring last year. He is a man of few words, stern but loving in his own way. My mother, Susan, stayed home to raise Kyle and me. She always had a soft spot for Kyle, the baby of the family. From the time we were kids, it was obvious. When Kyle got caught shoplifting a candy bar at age 12, Mom convinced the store owner to let it slide. When he dropped out of college in his sophomore year, she told everyone he was taking time to find himself. When he racked up $8,000 in credit card debt at age 25, Dad quietly paid it off without telling anyone outside the family. I was always the responsible one. I worked 2 jobs to pay for college, graduated with honors, and never asked my parents for a dime after I turned 18. I was not bitter about it. That is just how it was. Kyle struggled, and they helped him. I did not need help, so I did not get it. It seemed fair enough at the time. 6 months before the incident, I helped Kyle get a job through a friend of mine who managed a warehouse distribution center. Kyle seemed grateful, and for a while things appeared to be looking up for him. He started coming around our apartment more often, sometimes joining Diane and me for dinner or a movie night. Diane always made him feel welcome. She would cook extra food and ask him about his week. I thought it was sweet that my fiancé and my brother got along so well. Looking back now, there were signs I missed. About 2 months before everything exploded, Diane started staying late at school more frequently. She said the annual Spring Art Festival was coming up and she needed to prepare displays and organize student projects. When I called her in the evenings, she sometimes took a while to answer, and I could hear background noise that did not quite sound like a school. Once I saw Kyle's name flash on her phone screen. When I asked about it, she smiled and said he was asking for advice on a birthday gift for me. I believed her without question. Why would I not? I trusted both of them completely. The night before that Friday, Diane and I curled up on the couch to watch a movie. She rested her head on my shoulder, and halfway through she looked up at me and said, "I love you so much." Her eyes were wet like she might cry, but when I asked if she was okay, she just nodded and held me tighter. I thought she was emotional about the wedding. I had no idea she was already carrying the weight of what she had done. That Friday morning, I kissed her goodbye at 6 a.m. I was supposed to drive to Seattle for a client meeting and stay overnight. The meeting was scheduled for 2 in the afternoon, so I left early to avoid traffic. Diane made me coffee in my travel mug and reminded me to drive carefully. As I walked out the door, she called out, "I will miss you." I turned back and blew her a kiss. That image of her standing in our doorway in her pajamas, smiling at me, is burned into my memory. The meeting got canceled at 11 in the morning. The client's CEO had a family emergency, and they pushed everything back a week. I was already halfway to Seattle when I got the call. Instead of finding a hotel and wasting the day, I decided to surprise Diane by coming home early. I stopped at her favorite bakery and picked up a box of chocolate croissants. I grabbed a bouquet of yellow roses from the flower stand on the corner because yellow was her favorite color. I imagined her face lighting up when I walked through the door. I got home around 2 in the afternoon. The sun was bright and the parking lot was quiet. That is when I saw it. Kyle's blue Honda Civic was parked in the guest spot right in front of our building. My first thought was not suspicion. It was confusion. Why would Kyle be here in the middle of the day when he knew I was out of town? Maybe he needed something. Maybe Diane had invited him over to help with wedding planning. My brain scrambled for innocent explanations. I unlocked the front door and stepped inside. The apartment was strangely quiet. Diane's purse was on the kitchen counter. Kyle's jacket was draped over the back of the couch. I set down the flowers and the bakery box, and that is when I heard it. A sound coming from our bedroom. It was faint, muffled, but unmistakable. Voices. Movement. My heart started to pound. My hands went cold. Every step I took toward that bedroom door felt like walking through wet cement. I pushed the door open. Time did not just slow down. It stopped. Diane and Kyle were in my bed. Our bed. The bed where Diane and I had talked about our future, where we had celebrated anniversaries, where I had held her when she cried about losing her grandfather. They were tangled together, and for a split second, they did not even notice me standing there. Then Diane saw me. She screamed. Kyle's face went white as a sheet. He scrambled to pull the blanket over himself. I did not yell. I did not move. I just stood there staring. On the floor next to the bed was Diane's backup wedding dress, the one she had ordered in case she wanted to change at the reception. It was lying in a crumpled heap, mixed with Kyle's t-shirt and jeans. The roses I had been holding slipped from my hand and hit the floor. Red petals scattered across the hardwood like drops of blood. I turned around and walked out. I did not say a word. I left the door wide open behind me and walked straight to my car. I could hear Diane calling my name, but it sounded like it was coming from underwater. I got in my car, started the engine, and drove. I did not know where I was going. I just drove. I ended up at a small park along the Columbia River. I parked near a bench and sat there staring at the water. My phone started ringing almost immediately. Diane. Kyle. Diane again. Kyle again. I watched the screen light up, over and over until the battery started to drain. Then the text messages started pouring in. Diane sent 15 texts in the first hour. Oliver, please let me explain. It is not what you think. It was a mistake. I love you. Please come home. Kyle's messages were shorter. Bro, I am so sorry I messed up. Please talk to me. I turned my phone off. I sat on that bench as the afternoon turned to evening. Families walked by with dogs, joggers passed, couples held hands. The world kept moving like nothing had happened, but my entire life had just imploded. Around 7, it started to drizzle. The park emptied out. I stayed. By 8, I was soaked through, but I did not care. I could not feel anything. Finally, around 9, I turned my phone back on. It immediately started buzzing. My mother was calling. I stared at her name on the screen for a long time before I answered. Oliver, sweetheart, where are you? Kyle called me crying. He said there was a misunderstanding. A misunderstanding. I could barely get the words out. I saw them, Mom. In my bed, in my apartment, there was silence on the other end. Then I heard her take a deep breath. I know, honey, but these things happen. Kyle said they were both drunk last weekend at your friend's party and one thing led to another. It was just once, just a mistake. Her words hit me like a punch to the gut. Once, last weekend. Mom, are you hearing yourself? I know you are hurt, baby, but Kyle is your brother. He is family. And Diane, she made a mistake, but she loves you. The wedding is in 3 weeks. Think about all the deposits, all the guests. I hung up. My hands were shaking so hard I almost dropped the phone. My own mother was defending them. I did not go back to the apartment that night. I could not. Instead, I drove an hour south to my parents' house in Salem. I needed to see their faces. I needed to understand how they could possibly think this was acceptable. When I pulled into the driveway at almost 11 at night, I saw 3 cars. Mine made 4. They were all there. My parents, Kyle, and Diane. I walked in without knocking. They were all sitting in the living room. Kyle's eyes were red and swollen. Diane looked like she had not stopped crying since I left. My father stood up when he saw me. Oliver, sit down. We need to talk like a family. I stayed by the door. I have nothing to say to them. My mother stood up and walked toward me. Oliver, please. Let them explain. Diane stepped forward and tried to reach for my hand. I pulled away like she had burned me. Oliver, I am so sorry. It was a terrible mistake. I was confused about the wedding stress, and Kyle was there, and how long I cut her off. My voice was flat, cold. How long has this been going on? Kyle spoke up from the couch. Bro, it was just twice. I swear I turned on him. Twice. You just told Mom it was once. He looked down at his hands. Diane started sobbing harder. 3 months. But it is over now, I swear. I choose you. I love you. 3 months. 3 months. That meant it started right around the time I helped Kyle get his job. Right around the time he started coming over more often. My mind raced through every dinner, every movie night, every time I left them alone together while I went to grab takeout or run to the store. How many times? How many times had they betrayed me under my own roof? My father cleared his throat. Oliver, I understand you are angry. You have every right to be. But you need to think about this rationally. I stared at him. Rationally, Dad, are you serious right now? What I mean is, Kyle is your brother. He is young, he made a mistake. And Diane, she has been a part of this family for 3 years. Are you really going to throw all that away? My mother jumped in. Think about the wedding, Oliver. Everything is paid for. All our relatives are coming from the East Coast. What will people say? I laughed. It came out bitter and harsh. What will people say? That is what you care about. I care about you. I care about this family. Kyle already said he is sorry. He will stay away from you too after the wedding. You can work this out. My grandmother, who had been staying with my parents for the past month, even chimed in from her chair in the corner. In my day, we did not give up on relationships so easily. Marriage is about forgiveness, Oliver. I felt like I was surrounded, trapped. Everyone in that room was telling me the same thing. Forgive. Move on. Think about the family. My phone buzzed in my pocket. A text from my half-sister Jessica, who was away at medical school. Get out of there. You do not owe them anything. The conversation went on for hours. They took turns. My mother cried and begged. My father gave me stern lectures about family loyalty. Kyle literally got on his knees in front of me. Bro, please. I will do anything. I will move to another state if you want. Just do not leave. Do not leave the family. Diane knelt beside him. I will spend the rest of my life making this up to you. Please, Oliver. I cannot lose you. Around midnight, my mother delivered what felt like an ultimatum. Oliver, if you cancel this wedding, if you cut Kyle and Diane out, you are cutting us out too. I will not have you tearing this family apart. I looked around the room. My mother was crying. My father was shaking his head in disappointment. My grandmother was sighing heavily. Kyle and Diane were on their knees at my feet like I was some kind of judge deciding their fate. And in that moment I realized something. They did not care about my pain. They did not care about what had been done to me. They only cared about maintaining the image of a perfect, happy family. I stood up. I need time to think. My mother grabbed my arm. The wedding is in 3 weeks. How much time do you need? I pulled my arm free, turned, and walked out. As I got in my car and drove away, I realized something else. They were asking me to sacrifice my dignity, my self-respect, my sense of worth, all for their comfort. And I had a choice to make. The next week was a blur. I rented a small studio apartment on the other side of town and did not tell anyone except Jessica where I was staying. She came by the next day with a carload of my things that she had picked up from the old apartment while Diane was at work. My clothes, my laptop, some books, and a few pieces of furniture. Everything else could stay. I went to work every day like nothing had happened. When coworkers asked about wedding plans, I smiled and said everything was on schedule. At night, I sat alone in my empty apartment making lists. Lists of everything I needed to do. Lists of every phone call I needed to make. Lists of every tie I needed to cut. I met with a lawyer to ask about breaking the lease on the apartment I shared with Diane. I went to the bank and separated our joint checking account. I called the wedding venue, the florist, the photographer, the DJ. I asked every single one of them about their cancellation policies. Most of them were sympathetic when I said there had been a change in circumstances. A few asked if I wanted to postpone instead of cancel. I said no. This is permanent. My phone rang constantly. My mother called every single day, sometimes twice. My father sent long emails about family values and forgiveness. Kyle sent text after text. I am going to therapy. I am getting help. Please just talk to me. Diane even showed up at my office one afternoon. The security guard called me to ask if I wanted to see her. I said no, and asked him to escort her out. I did not block any of them. I just did not respond. On day 8, I met my best friend Marcus at a quiet bar downtown. Marcus had been my roommate in college and was supposed to be my best man. He had already heard everything. Kyle had called him along with every other mutual friend we had, trying to get people on his side. Man, I heard. I am so sorry. Marcus shook his head as he slid a beer across to me. That is beyond messed up. I do not even have words. I told him everything. The whole story, including how my family reacted. When I got to the part about my mother threatening to cut me off if I did not go through with the wedding, Marcus slammed his hand on the table. Wait, your mom wants you to marry her. After what she did, are they insane? They said family comes first. Marcus leaned back in his chair. Family does not do what they did to you. That is not family. That is manipulation. He told me about his own experience being cheated on by an ex-girlfriend years ago. At least my family had my back. They told me to dump her and never look back. Your family is asking you to light yourself on fire to keep them warm. That image stuck with me. Lighting myself on fire to keep them warm. That is exactly what it felt like. You know what you need to do. Marcus looked me in the eye. Do not let them guilt you into a life of misery. I knew he was right. I had known since the moment I walked out of my parents' house, but hearing someone else say it out loud made it real. 2 days later, with 1 week left until the original wedding date, I made the calls. First, I called the venue manager. I need to cancel the wedding. She was kind about it. I am sorry to hear that. According to the contract, cancellations within 2 weeks result in forfeiting the deposit, which is $7,500. I said I understood and asked her to proceed. I called the florist. Another $1,200 gone. The photographer, $2,000. The DJ, $800. By the time I was done, I had lost over $15,000 in deposits. I did not care. It was worth every penny. Then I sat down and wrote an email. It took me 3 hours to get the words right. Dear family and friends, I regret to inform you that the wedding between Diane and myself has been canceled. I apologize for any inconvenience this may cause. Thank you for your understanding. I did not explain why. I did not need to. I hit send and watched as the email went out to 97 people. My phone exploded within minutes, but the call I was waiting for came an hour later. My mother. Oliver, what have you done? Everyone is calling me asking questions. How could you embarrass us like this? I kept my voice calm. I am not the one who should be embarrassed. Mom, you are being selfish. Think about Kyle. Think about Diane. They made a mistake. No, Mom. You think about what you are asking me to do. You are asking me to marry a woman who cheated on me with my own brother in my own bed for 3 months? You are asking me to pretend everything is fine so you can save face in front of relatives I barely know? That is not fair. I cut her off. Did you ever once ask me how I am feeling? Did you ever once say, I am sorry this happened to you? Or did you just immediately jump to protecting Kyle and worrying about what people will think? Silence. Here is what is going to happen. I am not marrying Diane. I am moving on with my life. Kyle is no longer my brother. He can have my spot as the good son, since he clearly wants it so badly. My mother started crying. You are disowning your own family. No, Mom. You chose. You chose Kyle over me when you asked me to forgive the unforgivable. I am just accepting your choice. I hung up and blocked her number. The Saturday before what would have been my wedding day, I drove to my parents' house one last time. I had something I needed to do. When I pulled up, I saw that everyone was there again. My father's truck, my mother's sedan, Kyle's Civic, even Diane's car. They were all waiting. My mother opened the door. Her eyes were puffy and red. Oliver, thank God you are here. We can still fix this. I walked past her into the living room, where everyone was gathered. I was carrying a large cardboard box. I set it down on the coffee table in front of them. Inside was the engagement ring, the key to our old apartment, and a stack of photographs. Pictures of Diane and me. Pictures of Kyle and me as kids. I am returning these. I do not need them anymore. Diane stood up and tried to approach me. Oliver, please, I held up my hand. Do not. Just do not. I pulled out an envelope and placed it on top of the box. This is a check for Mom and Dad. $10,000. It is to cover any costs you incurred for the wedding. Consider it my final contribution to this family. My father frowned. We do not want your money, Oliver. I do not care what you want, Dad. I am giving it to you anyway, so you can never say I left you with the burden. I turned to Kyle. He looked smaller somehow, like he had shrunk. He opened his mouth to speak. Bro, Do not call me that. You are not my brother anymore. A brother would not do what you did. I looked at Diane. I hope it was worth it. I hope sleeping with him was worth throwing away 3 years and a future together. She collapsed onto the couch, sobbing. Finally, I faced my parents. And you two. You taught me a lot. You taught me that blood does not make family. Loyalty does. Respect does. Love does. And you showed me none of that when it mattered most. My mother reached for me. Oliver, do not do this. I am done. I am walking out that door and I am not coming back. You can keep your perfect little family with Kyle. I will build my own life with people who actually value me. I turned and walked toward the door. Kyle ran after me and grabbed my sleeve. Please do not leave, I need you. I gently removed his hand. You should have thought about that before. I got in my car and drove away. In my rearview mirror, I could see my parents' house getting smaller and smaller until it disappeared completely. And for the first time in 2 weeks, I felt like I could breathe again. The weight of their expectations, their guilt trips, their manipulation, it all fell away. I did not know what the future held, but I knew one thing for certain. I was finally free. The first 3 weeks after I walked away were the darkest of my life. It was not because I missed Diane or Kyle. It was because I was grieving the loss of something bigger. I was mourning the family I thought I had. The family I had believed in for 32 years. Some nights I could not sleep. I would lie awake replaying every conversation, every moment, wondering if I had done the right thing, wondering if I was being too harsh, wondering if maybe I should have tried harder to forgive. But then I would remember my mother's words, "What will people say?" And I would remember that not once did anyone ask me how I was feeling. Not once did anyone validate my pain. Jessica called me almost every day. She was the only family member I still spoke to. She would tell me what was happening back home. Mom calls me constantly asking if I have talked to you. She wants me to convince you to come back. What did you tell her? I told her you did the right thing, and that she should be ashamed of herself. Jessica also told me that Kyle had lost his job. Apparently, after everything happened, he could not focus at work, and his performance tanked. His boss let him go. Diane had moved back in with her parents in Eugene, 2 hours south. My parents were barely speaking to each other. My father blamed my mother for pushing me away. My mother blamed my father for not talking sense into me. I did not feel satisfied hearing any of this. I just felt sad. Sad that it had come to this. Sad that they still did not understand what they had done wrong. I started going to therapy. I had never been to a therapist before, but I knew I needed help processing everything. My therapist, Dr. Sarah Williams, was a calm woman in her early 50s with kind eyes. In our first session, she asked me to tell her what happened. When I finished, she was quiet for a moment. You did not just lose your fiancé and your brother. You lost the image of the family you thought you had. That is a grief process, and it is okay to mourn that. Those words gave me permission to feel everything I was feeling. The anger, the sadness, the confusion, the betrayal. Over the next few months, I learned how to sit with those emotions instead of running from them. I started running every morning along the river. Sometimes Marcus would join me. We would not talk much. We would just run. And then we would stop at a coffee shop and sit in silence, drinking our coffee and watching the city wake up. It was exactly what I needed. 3 months after I walked away, I felt strong enough to start rebuilding. I found a better apartment in a different neighborhood, a place with no memories attached. I decorated it in a minimalist style, clean lines, and neutral colors. Nothing that reminded me of the past. I threw myself into my work and got promoted to senior architect. I started taking drawing classes in the evenings, something I had always wanted to do but never made time for. I joined a weekend hiking group and met new people who knew nothing about my past. They just knew me as Oliver, the guy who loved the outdoors and could identify every tree on the trail. One of the people I met in the hiking group was a woman named Anna. She was a freelance photographer, 30 years old, with short dark hair and an infectious laugh. We started talking on one of the longer hikes, and I found myself opening up to her in a way I had not with anyone in months. She did not push. She just listened. 6 months after everything fell apart, I got an email from my mother. The subject line said, "Please read this." I stared at it for a long time before opening it. The email was long. She apologized for how she had handled everything. She said she had started going to therapy after our family fell apart and realized she had been enabling Kyle his entire life. She admitted that she had prioritized his feelings over mine and that it was wrong. She said she missed me and hoped that one day we could talk. A few days later, Jessica brought me a handwritten letter from Kyle. He had written pages about how sorry he was, how he had lost everything, his job, his friends, his self-respect. He said he finally understood the magnitude of what he had done and did not expect forgiveness, but wanted me to know he was working on becoming a better person. I did not hear anything from Diane. Jessica told me she had gotten engaged to someone new, a man she met on a dating app. Apparently she was getting married in the fall. I read the letters from my mother and Kyle and felt nothing. Not anger. Not sadness. Just emptiness. I was not ready to respond. Maybe I never would be. After thinking about it for a week, I decided to reply to my mother's email. I kept it short. Mom, I appreciate your apology. I can see you have been working on yourself and that is good. But I need you to understand something. I forgive you, but forgiving does not mean forgetting. It does not mean going back to how things were. What happened changed me. It showed me who I can and cannot trust. And right now, I need to prioritize my own healing and my own happiness. Maybe someday we can rebuild a relationship, a different one, with clear boundaries and mutual respect. But that day is not today. I need more time. I wish you well, and I hope you find peace with your choices. I sent the email and felt a sense of closure. Not complete closure, but enough. I did not block them. I just did not reach out. The door was not completely closed, but it was not open either. A year after everything happened, I was standing on top of Mount Hood with my hiking group. Anna was next to me, handing me a water bottle and smiling. We had been dating for 2 months. It was slow and careful, but it felt right. She knew my whole story, and she never once made me feel broken or damaged. She just accepted me as I was. Jessica had come on the hike too. She had become more than my half-sister. She was my closest family now. She snapped a picture of the group with the sunrise behind us, and I remember thinking how different my life looked now compared to a year ago. I thought about everything I had been through, the betrayal, the family pressure, the loneliness, the grief, and then the slow, painful process of rebuilding. I realized something standing on that mountain. Walking away from my family was not an act of selfishness. It was an act of self-preservation. It was choosing to value myself when no one else would. Family comes first. That phrase had been drilled into my head my entire life, but I finally understood what it really meant. Family comes first, only when that family treats you with the respect and love you deserve. Otherwise, you come first. You always come first. If you are watching this, and you are in a similar situation where family is asking you to tolerate betrayal for the sake of peace, I want you to know something. You deserve better. You deserve loyalty, respect, and genuine love. And if they cannot give you that, it is okay to walk away. People will call you selfish. They will say you are tearing the family apart. But remember this. You are not the one who broke it. You are just the one refusing to stay in the broken pieces. As for me, I am happier now than I ever was pretending everything was fine. I built a new life with people who actually value me. And that is not revenge. That is peace. Genuine, hard-earned peace. So here is my final message. Family comes first only when family treats you right. Otherwise, you come first, always. Now I want to hear from you. Have you ever been in a situation where you had to choose between family loyalty and your own self-respect? What did you do? Drop your thoughts in the comments below, because your story might help someone else who is struggling with the same decision. If this story resonated with you, please hit that like button and share this video with someone who needs to hear it. And do not forget to subscribe for more real stories about life betrayal and finding the strength to start over. Thank you for listening to my story. I hope it brought you some clarity, some comfort, or at least the reminder that you are not alone. Take care of yourself, and remember you deserve to be treated with dignity, always.